Although a lot of the NHL's intrigue is in the Eastern Conference, there's quite a bit going on in the West as well. The Predators and the Jets are locked in a battle for first in the Central, and the Calgary Flames are stunning the Pacific. One team expected to make a run at the Stanley Cup this season, the San Jose Sharks, has lived up to the billing. However, that's despite some abysmal goaltending so far this year. Winger Mark Stone out of Ottawa is also raising eyebrows. Matt Duchene is now out, so Stone is their most enticing asset, but the Senators seem to be working hard to negotiate a new contract with Stone. If they fail to do so, they'll likely offload Stone before Monday's deadline, but that's a dangerous proposition. The last thing they want is to have to settle for less because they're pushed up against the wire. Holding on to Stone is an option, but it also runs the risk of Stone walking and the Senators getting nothing in return. The other team looking to sell is the Rangers, but their pieces remain on the team for now. Here are the latest rumors swirling in the league as we approach the deadline. Blue Jackets still open to trading Panarin. The Blue Jackets have been the biggest buyers at the deadline so far, acquiring both Matt Duchene and Ryan Gingell from the Senators in separate deals. But Columbus could still be somewhat of a seller too, as they're apparently still open to trading Artemi Panarin if the right deal comes across the table. Panarin is on the final year of his current contract and doesn't seem likely to remain in Columbus beyond this year, so the Jackets may be willing to take a package rather than let him walk for nothing. CBJ definitely not in on Stone, nothing more to give up, but will still consider moving Panarin if it can help them now and the future. #NHL trade John Shannon, at JSportsNet, February 25, 2019. It's hard to imagine Columbus getting an equal immediate return for Panarin, so they may ultimately decide to FS were integral in the Capitals' championship run. LD onto him as they go for it this year, but they're not ruling out a potential deal just yet. Bruins exploring options on the wing. Boston is still looking to upgrade their forward group, and there are a number of names they're reportedly inquiring about. Among them, Mark Stone in Ottawa, Wayne Simmons in Philadelphia, and Tyler Toffoli from Los Angeles. Toffoli is an interesting option considering he hasn't been discussed much to this point. He's having a down year with the Kings but is a solid two-way player who is signed for an additional year beyond this season. Flames and Jets out on Mark Stone. Calgary Flames executive Don Maloney appeared on Sportsnet Monday morning and revealed that the Flames were in on something big before walking away due to a high asking price. It was later revealed he was talking about Ottawa's Mark Stone, so the Flames are reportedly out on Stone, at least for now. The Jets are also out on Stone after acquiring Kevin Hayes from New York. It'll be interesting to see if Ottawa comes down on their asking price for Stone, as it seems whatever they're commanding is too much for the teams interested in his services. Teams are willing to take the Mark Stone talks down to the wire to see where Ottawa's ask ends up. VGK, NSH, GOS, NYI, and CGY. Despite Don Maloney's earlier quote to it, Ryan Leslie 73 among those still believed to be lurking. Chris Johnston, at Reporter Chris, February 25, 2019. Wild shopping. Granlund and Zucker. Two names that could potentially be on the move Monday are Minnesota's Michael Granlund and / Jason Zucker. Both players have term beyond this season, so they're not a sure thing to be moved, but the Wild are retooling and looking to get younger. According to The Athletic's Michael Russo, the Nashville Predators are interested in Granlund, and young winger Kevin Fiala could be a piece that entices Minnesota. The Wild's acquisition of Ryan Donato in the Charlie Coyle to Boston deal is already showing some early returns, so it's possible that helps convince them to pull the trigger on a deal that brings in some more younger talent that they can start building long-term plans around. Boston backing on Eric Staal? Reports last week had the Bruins interested in Minnesota's Eric Staal before ultimately deciding to take a different approach to the deadline. However, a report from Elliot Friedman on Monday suggests that the Bruins have re-engaged with Minnesota on the veteran center, but that Staal is reluctant to waive his no-trade clause. Boston just made a deal with the Wild to acquire Charlie Coyle last week. Coyle and Staal were line mates in Minnesota and would potentially provide a major boost for the Bruins' third line if they were to reunite in Boston. But, For now, Stahl, who has 1 year remaining on his current deal, appears content to ride things out in Minnesota. Gustav Nyquist waives for San Jose. TSN's Bob McKenzie reported late Sunday night that Detroit Red Wings winger Gustav Nyquist is waiving his no-trade clause for a deal that would send him to the San Jose Sharks. Follow-up reports suggest that the Sharks will send a 2019 second-round pick and a conditional third-round pick in 2020 to Detroit. The Wings will also reportedly retain 30% of Nyquist's salary. Det has asked Gustav Nyquist to waive his NTC to facilitate a trade to SJ. Nyquist is apparently willing to do so, which would pave the way for Det and SJ to finalize/formalize this transaction. Bob McKenzie, at TSN. Bob McKenzie, February 25, 2019. The trade is not yet official, but it appears the framework is in place and formalities just need to be checked off before the deal is made official. Capitals bolster defense with Jensen trade. The Capitals continued the arms race in the East with the addition of Nick Jensen from the Red Wings, per Darren Dreger. Jensen is on the final year of his contract, so he'll be a candidate for an extension. For the time being, however, he joins a contender as the Capitals try to prepare for the loaded Atlantic Division come the postseason. Senators have huge ask for Stone with Duchesne gone and Panarin apparently out of the picture. All eyes will now stay on the Senators as Mark Stone talks continue. According to The Athletic's Pierre LeBrun, the Senators' ask for Stone is huge right now, but with the winger on an expiring contract it may be negotiable. There hasn't been word on where the Senators stand in negotiation with Stone, but Monday's deadline is coming fast. If the Senators aren't amenable, teams may try to move on, with the Rangers' Matt Zuccarello and Kevin Hayes being primary targets. Blue Jackets reshuffle deck with Duchesne trade. The Columbus Blue Jackets are just a game out of a playoff spot in the East, but with Artemi Panarin and Sergei Bobrovsky being on expiring contracts, not to mention the fact that they're stuck in a conference with the Lightning, Bruins, and Maple Leafs, they were expected to trade Panarin on a rental with the hopes of re-signing him long-term looking bleak. Instead, the Blue Jackets traded for Matt Duchesne, and gave up a fairly substantial haul to do so, indicating that they're taking this year seriously. The Athletic's Pierre LeBrun speculates that this means they're content to let Panarin play out the rest of his contract and potentially let him walk. The move topples a few dominoes in the Western Conference, as the Jets and Predators were looking at trying to land a winger. The Predators were a name heavily circulated in talks for Duchesne, whereas the Jets were being name-dropped as a team to go for Panarin if they'd landed him. Both teams in the Central race could now stand pat. Panthers getting calls about Hoffman. Although there's a good chance Mike Hoffman stays in Florida past the deadline, teams need to have options. The Panthers have asked Mike Hoffman for the 10 teams he would veto a trade to, via his modified no-trade clause, according to The Athletic's Pierre LeBrun. Per LeBrun, Hoffman is getting interest. Hoffman will be a free agent in 2020. So teams who are inquiring about him are asking for a little more than a half-season rental. With that in mind, it's not likely Hoffman will be moved, but it's also not impossible given the Panthers' disappointing season. Ducks working to send Miller to San Jose. Goaltending might be the Sharks' biggest bugaboo this season, and if they aren't careful, it might be what does them in. They're trying to address the problem, and according to John Hoven, they're hoping that the Ducks' Ryan Miller is their answer. The 38-year-old goalie may be heading up the coast for the final stretch of this season. The Sharks are a playoff team this year, but Martin Jones' .896 save percentage has San Jose worried. According to Hoven, Miller would likely re-sign with the Ducks in the summer, but the Sharks only need a few months of solid hockey out of him to make any deal worthwhile. Capitals placed Smith Pelly on waivers. Trade for Hagelin. The aforementioned Capitals are looking to stay competitive against the Lightning and Maple Leafs, not to mention the Bruins, who appear to be looking to be extremely active at this year's deadline. They reportedly placed Devontae Smith-Pelly on waivers on Wednesday, per Elliot Friedman, and they then traded for the Kings' Carl Hagelin for a third-rounder next year and a conditional sixth in the entry draft for 2020. Hagelin, a rental in his own right, has a goal in 22 games this season as the Kings try to retool. News: Capitals have acquired forward Carl Hagelin from the Los Angeles Kings for a third-round pick in the 2019 NHL Draft and a conditional sixth-round pick in the 2020 NHL Entry Draft. Hashtag all caps https://t.co/RNSYSSWYJE Washington Capitals, at Capitals, February 21, 2019 Smith Pelly. Last year's Stanley Cup hero didn't have much production this season. He has 13 goals in just under 2 seasons with the Capitals, but his 7 goals in last year's playoff